I'm Robin, 32 years old, and I've been in the event planning game for 9 years now. Weddings, birthdays, anniversaries, engagements, you name it, I've organized it. Funny how life turns out. I studied economics in college, but got hooked on planning events during my time there. Turns out, I had a knack for it. So much so that I decided to make it my career. Over the years, I've built up quite a reputation. My calendar's always packed with clients, which is great for business, but not so much for my personal life. Not that I'm complaining, I love what I do. So there I was, sitting in my office, hashing out details for the Johnson family's company anniversary. 30 years in business, that's something to celebrate, right? I was deep in conversation with Mr. Johnson about centerpieces when my phone buzzed. It was my sister, Kate. "Robin, you need to come to Mom and Dad's now," she said, her voice all urgent. "It's important." I sighed, looking at the mountain of work on my desk. "Fine, I'll be there in an hour." As I drove to my parents' house, I couldn't help but feel a knot in my stomach. Family gatherings were never my favorite thing. Don't get me wrong, I love my family, but there's always been this tension. See, Kate's 8 years younger than me, and she's always been the golden child. Mom and Dad doted on her, while I was left to fend for myself. When I went to college, they couldn't find the money to help me out. My grandmother stepped in, bless her soul. But a few years later, they had no problem footing the bill for Kate's education and a fancy apartment. I tried not to let it get to me, but it stung. Over the years, I'd learned to keep my distance. It was easier that way. I pulled up to the house and took a deep breath before knocking. Mom answered the door with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Robin, honey, come in. Everyone's in the living room." I walked in to find Dad and Kate sitting on the couch. Kate jumped up, practically bouncing with excitement. I raised an eyebrow. "What's the big emergency?" Kate clapped her hands together. "Well, I have a surprise. But first, promise me you'll help, okay?" I looked at Mom and Dad, who were both smiling encouragingly. Against my better judgment, I nodded. "Okay, I promise. Now what's going on?" Just as I was about to press Kate for more details, the front door opened. In walked a guy who looked a bit younger than me, all smiles and charm. Kate bounced over to him, linking her arm through his. "Robin, this is Mark, my fiancé." I blinked, caught off guard. "Oh, nice to meet you, Mark." We shook hands, and I turned back to Kate. "So, this is the big news? You're engaged?" Kate nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, and that's why I called you here. I want you to plan our engagement party." I felt my stomach drop. "Kate, I appreciate the thought, but I'm swamped with clients right now." "I don't think." Dad cut me off. "Now, Robin, this is your sister we're talking about. Surely you can make time for family instead of strangers." I bit my tongue, fighting back the urge to remind him how little time they'd made for me over the years. Mom chimed in, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Honey, it's your duty as a sister. Kate deserves the best, doesn't she?" I looked at Kate, who was practically vibrating with excitement. "It has to be perfect, Robin. I mean, I deserve the best, right?" I felt trapped. Every instinct told me to say no, to stand my ground. But years of family dynamics kicked in, and I heard myself agreeing. "Great," Kate clapped her hands. "And of course, you'll do it for free." "That's not a problem, is it?" I froze. "Free? Kate, even for family, there are costs involved." "Oh, don't be silly," Kate laughed. "You're doing this as my sister. We'll cover the actual expenses, of course, but your services are a gift, right?" I looked at Mom and Dad, hoping for some support, but they just nodded along with Kate. I felt like I was drowning. "Fine," I said, the word tasting bitter in my mouth. "I'll plan the party for free, but you and Mark will need to cover all other expenses. Deal?" Kate squealed and hugged me tight. Deal. Oh, Robin, you're the best. As I drove home, my mind was racing. I'd just committed to planning a free event for my sister, potentially losing paying clients in the process. The Johnsons' anniversary was the first casualty. I called them as soon as I got home. Mr. Johnson? It's Robin. I'm so sorry, but something's come up with my family, and I won't be able to plan your anniversary party after all. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Oh, I see. Well, these things happen, I suppose. I could hear the disappointment in his voice, and it made me feel even worse. I have a colleague who's excellent at event planning. I'd be happy to pass along her contact information if you'd like. Mr. Johnson agreed, and I sent over my friend Sarah's details. As I hung up, I couldn't help but feel like I was watching my hard-earned reputation slip away. All because I couldn't say no to my family. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of planning and phone calls. I threw myself into organizing Kate's engagement party with the same dedication I gave to all my events. Maybe even more, if I'm being honest. There was a part of me that wanted to prove something, to my family, to Kate, to myself. I was determined to make this the most spectacular engagement party ever. I started by booking the Riverside, an upscale restaurant with a stunning view of the city skyline. It wasn't easy to get a reservation on such short notice, but I pulled some strings. The owner, Samantha, was an old client of mine. Next came the menu. I spent hours on the phone with the chef, discussing options. We need something impressive, but not stuffy, I explained. Think elegant comfort food. The DJ was a no-brainer. I called up Mike, my go-to guy for all my events. Hey, Mike. Got a special one for you. My sister's engagement party. With the big items taken care of, I called Kate to give her an update and discuss payment. Oh, it all sounds wonderful, she gushed. You really are the best at this, Robin. Thanks, I said, trying to keep the pride out of my voice. So, about the deposits. Oh, right, Kate interrupted. Can we do that later? Mark and I are a bit tied up with some other expenses right now. But I promise we'll pay for everything before the party. Cross my heart. I hesitated. It wasn't how I usually did business, but this was my sister. All right, Kate, I trust you. After hanging up, I made some more calls. To the florist, the decorators, the rental company for the extra chairs and tables. Each time, I found myself saying the same thing. The payment will be a little delayed, but I guarantee it'll come through before the event. You know I'm good for it. And each time, they agreed. After all, we had history. They trusted me. I just hoped I wasn't making a huge mistake. As the days passed, more client calls came in. Good offers, too. The sort that would have paid my rent for months. But each time, I had to turn them down. As the engagement party date loomed closer, I finally sat down to tally up all the expenses. My desk was cluttered with receipts and invoices, flowers, catering, decorations, venue rental, and more. I meticulously entered each item into a spreadsheet, watching the total climb higher and higher. When I finished, I stared at the screen in disbelief. The final amount was just over $13,000. It was more than I'd anticipated, but that's what happens when you're told to spare no expense for the perfect engagement party. I took a deep breath and composed an email to Kate, attaching the detailed invoice. Hey sis, I wrote, trying to keep it light, here's the breakdown of expenses for your engagement party. Let me know if you have any questions. That evening, my phone rang, it was Kate. Hey, what's up? I answered, expecting her to have questions about the invoice. Robin, why are you sending me bills? Kate's voice was sickeningly sweet, with an undercurrent of annoyance. I frowned. What do you mean? It's the invoice for the engagement party expenses, just like we agreed. There was a pause, then Kate let out a laugh that sent chills down my spine. Oh, Robin, you can't seriously expect Mark and me to pay for all this, can you? My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? Kate, you promised you'd cover all the expenses. I've got vendors waiting to be paid. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Kate scoffed. You make plenty of money with your little party planning business. Surely you can afford to treat your only sister to a nice engagement party? I was speechless. This couldn't be happening. Kate, listen to me, I have people waiting to be paid. People who trusted me. You promised. Well, I'm sorry if there was a misunderstanding, Kate said, not sounding sorry at all. But Mark and I simply can't afford this right now. You'll have to figure something out. Before I could respond, the line went dead. I stared at my phone in disbelief, then immediately tried to call her back. It went straight to voicemail. Panic rising in my chest, I dialed my parents' number. Mom picked up on the third ring. Robin, is everything okay? I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. Mom, we have a problem. Kate is refusing to pay for her engagement party expenses. Can you please talk to her? There was a long pause. Oh, honey, Mom finally said, her voice full of disappointment. Why are you trying to charge your sister for her own engagement party? That's not very nice of you. I felt like I was losing my mind. Mom, that was the agreement. I'm doing all the work for free, but Kate and Mark were supposed to cover the actual costs. I have vendors waiting to be paid. Now, Robin, Dad's voice came on the line, I was on speaker. You know your sister doesn't have that kind of money. But you're doing well with your business. Surely you can handle this as a gift to Kate. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Dad, it's $13,000. I can't just. $13,000? Mom gasped. Robin, how could you spend so much? That's ridiculous. You told me to make it perfect, I shouted, my composure finally breaking. You said Kate deserved the best. Don't raise your voice at us, young lady, Dad said sternly. The fact is, you agreed to do this for your sister. If you've overspent, that's on you. You'll just have to figure it out. The conversation devolved from there. No matter what I said, my parents refused to see reason. In their eyes, I was the villain, the successful older sister, trying to ruin her little sister's special day over money. By the time I hung up, I was shaking with anger and disbelief. I looked at my computer screen, the invoice still open. $13,000. Money I'd promised to people who trusted me. Just then, a notification popped up on my phone. It was from Kate's social media account. With trembling fingers, I tapped the link, and what I saw made my blood boil. There was my sister, beaming at the camera, her post gushing about the upcoming engagement party. Can't wait for tomorrow, she wrote. We've spent so much to make it perfect. It's going to be amazing. Something inside me snapped. The anger, frustration, and hurt I'd been bottling up for years came rushing to the surface. Before I knew what I was doing, I had my phone in hand, dialing the restaurant. Samantha, it's Robin, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. I'm sorry, but I need to cancel tomorrow's event. I'll transfer the full payment and cancellation fee to you right away. I made similar calls to all the vendors, the caterer, the florist, the decorators. Each time, I apologized profusely and promised immediate payment. By the time I was done, my savings account was nearly drained, but my professional relationships were intact. The last call I made was to Mike, my DJ friend. Hey, Mike. I'm so sorry, but tomorrow's event is canceled. Whoa, what happened? Isn't it your sister's engagement? I sighed. It's a long story, I'll fill you in later. For now, consider yourself free tomorrow. I'll still pay your fee, of course. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table, a cup of coffee growing cold in front of me. My phone was propped up against the sugar bowl, live streaming Kate's arrival at the restaurant. I watched as she stepped out of a car, Mark by her side, both of them dressed to the nines. Mom and Dad were right behind them, along with Mark's parents and a group of excited-looking guests. Kate was talking animatedly to the camera, gesturing at the restaurant. "Here we are," she chirped. "I can't wait to show you all the amazing decorations. My wonderful sister Robin planned everything." I felt a twinge of guilt, quickly replaced by grim satisfaction as Kate reached for the door. Her smile faltered as it didn't budge. She tried again, then peered through the window. "That's weird," she said, her voice losing its perkiness. "It looks empty?" Then I saw her notice the sign on the door. Even through the small phone screen, I could see the color drain from her face. "Cancelled?" she shrieked, whirling to face my parents. "What does it mean, cancelled?" The livestream devolved into chaos. Kate was near hysterics, Mom was trying to calm her down, and Dad was on his phone, presumably trying to reach me. I sat at my kitchen table, a strange calm settling over me as I watched the chaos unfold on my phone screen. The satisfaction I felt was bittersweet. I'd finally stood up for myself, but at what cost? My phone buzzed. Kate's name flashed on the screen. I took a deep breath and answered. "What the hell did you do?" she screamed, her voice shrill with rage. I kept my voice level. "I cancelled the event that I paid for with my own money. You know, the one you refused to cover despite our agreement?" "How dare you?" Kate sputtered. "You've ruined everything. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is?" "About as embarrassing as being told to foot a $13,000 bill for my sister's party, I imagine," I replied coolly. Kate launched into a tirade of insults and accusations. I let her rant, feeling oddly detached from it all. When she paused for breath, I spoke. "Kate, you didn't respect my work or our agreement. You tried to deceive me. So I made a business decision to cancel an event I couldn't afford to fund myself. It's that simple." "You unbelievable creep," Kate shrieked. "You'll regret this, I swear." I hung up, my hands were shaking, but not from fear. For the first time in my life, I felt powerful. 15 minutes later, my phone rang again. Mom and Dad. "Robin Elizabeth," Dad's voice boomed as soon as I answered. "You've humiliated your sister and this entire family. How could you be so selfish?" I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Selfish? That's rich coming from you too." "Watch your tone," Mom chimed in. "We raised you better than this. Your sister is devastated." "And I'm out $13,000, I shot back. "Did you even consider that?" "Oh, please," Dad scoffed. "You're doing well with your business. You could have helped your sister out. That's what family does." I took a deep breath. I was helping. I planned the entire event for free. But I can't just throw away thousands of dollars. "You're just jealous," Mom interrupted. "You're jealous of your sister's happiness because you're all alone. So you decided to ruin her special day out of spite." The accusation hit me like a slap. I felt tears prick my eyes, but I blinked them away. "You know what? I'm done with this conversation. I'm done with all of it." I hung up before they could respond. My hands were shaking as I set down the phone, but I felt a strange sense of liberation. Taking a deep breath, I opened my laptop and composed an email to Kate. "Kate, I expect full reimbursement for all expenses incurred for your engagement party. This includes catering, venue rental, decorations, and all other associated costs. The total amount is $13,247.89. I've attached a detailed invoice for your reference. If I don't receive payment within 30 days, I will be forced to pursue legal action to recover these funds. Robin." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Within minutes, my phone was buzzing with messages. From Kate. "You money-grubbing witch. How dare you threaten me? You'll never see a cent from me." From Mark. "Back off, Robin. You're making a big mistake. You have no idea who you're messing with." I stared at the messages, a mix of anger and disbelief washing over me. How had it come to this? How had my own family turned into such strangers? Just as I was considering my next move, my phone rang. It was Aunt Sarah, Mom's sister. I hesitated before answering, bracing myself for more accusations. "Robin, what on earth happened today?" Aunt Sarah's voice was concerned, not angry. I took a deep breath and told her everything: the agreement with Kate, the last-minute refusal to pay, the cancellation, and the aftermath. As I spoke, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. When I finished, Aunt Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Oh, Robin, I'm so sorry you've been treated this way. You did the right thing, standing up for yourself." I felt tears prick my eyes at her understanding. "Thanks, Aunt Sarah. That means a lot. But there's something odd about all this," she continued. "Mark's family is quite well off. They own a chain of sports nutrition stores and several rental properties in the city. They could easily afford this engagement party." An idea struck me. "Aunt Sarah, do you happen to have their address?" 20 minutes later, I was pulling up to a large house in an upscale neighborhood. My heart was pounding as I rang the doorbell. Mark's mother answered, her expression guarded. "Yes, can I help you?" "Mrs. Johnson? I'm Robin, Kate's sister. I need to talk to you and your husband about what happened today." She hesitated, then nodded, leading me to a spacious living room where Mr. Johnson was waiting. "Please," I said, "I know you probably heard terrible things about me, but I beg you to hear my side of the story." They exchanged a look, then Mr. Johnson gestured for me to continue. I took a deep breath and told them everything, showing them the emails, the invoice, and the threatening messages from Mark and Kate. As I spoke, their expressions changed from skepticism to shock, then to anger, not at me, but at Mark. "We had no idea," Mrs. Johnson said, her voice tight. "Mark told us you demanded an exorbitant fee at the last minute and then cancelled when they couldn't pay." Mr. Johnson's face was dark with fury. "We gave that boy $30,000 for this engagement party. He said it was all taken care of." Mrs. Johnson reached out and took my hand. "Robin, we are so sorry for what you've been through. This is unacceptable behavior." Mr. Johnson was already on his phone, tapping away. "I'm transferring you the full amount you spent, plus an additional $5,000 for your trouble. It's the least we can do." As we talked more, I found myself warming to Mark's parents. They were kind, understanding people who seemed genuinely horrified by their son's actions. When I left their house, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. The money had been repaid, but more than that, I felt vindicated. Someone had finally listened to me and believed me. The weeks following the engagement party fiasco were surprisingly quiet. I threw myself into my work, grateful for the distraction. Slowly but surely, I felt like I was regaining my footing, both professionally and personally. One sunny afternoon, I was having coffee with my friend Lisa when she dropped a bombshell. "Did you hear about Kate and Mark?" she asked, her eyes wide with gossip. "Mark's parents cut him off completely. No more allowance, and they're refusing to pay for the wedding. It's all over town." I sat back, stunned. "Wow, I didn't expect that." "That's not all," Lisa continued. "Word is, the wedding's been called off. Kate and Mark can't afford it without his parents' money." As Lisa filled me in on more details, I felt a strange mix of emotions wash over me. There was a small, petty part of me that felt vindicated, karma had finally caught up with them. But mostly, I just felt sad. Sad for the mess this had all become, sad for the relationships that had been irreparably damaged. Over the next few days, I pieced together more of the story from various friends and acquaintances. Mark's parents, true to their word, had taken a hard line on their son's deception. They'd not only refused to fund the wedding but had also cut off his monthly allowance. As for my sister and parents, I heard through the grapevine that they were blaming me for everything. In their eyes, I was the villain who had ruined Kate's perfect life out of jealousy and spite. It hurt, but I wasn't surprised. It was easier for them to point fingers than to accept their own role in this mess. Weeks turned into months, and I had no direct contact with my family. At first, the silence was deafening. I'd catch myself reaching for the phone to call Mom or text Kate, only to remember that those bridges had been burned. But as time passed, I found the silence less oppressive and more peaceful. I focused on rebuilding my business, reaching out to clients I'd had to turn down during the engagement party planning. Many were understanding, and I threw myself into their events with renewed passion and creativity. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I reflected on everything that had happened. The pain was still there, a dull ache in my chest when I thought about my family. But alongside it was a new feeling, strength. I had stood up for myself, refused to be taken advantage of, and come out the other side. Yes, I'd lost my relationship with my sister and parents, at least for now. But I'd gained something invaluable, self-respect. I no longer felt like the family doormat, always giving and never receiving. I was Robin, successful event planner, woman who knew her worth. As for me, I was done being the family scapegoat. I was done apologizing for my success or diminishing myself to make others comfortable. The future was uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I was excited to see what it held. I raised my glass to the setting sun, a toast to new beginnings. Whatever came next, I knew one thing for certain: I was ready to face it head on my own terms.